Chapter 35. Come, said the Muse, sing me a song no poet yet has chanted. Sing me the universal. Walt Whitman. House lifted his arm out of the ice. He couldn't help the tears that slid across his cheeks. I love you, House, said Honey. She wore her most worried expression on her face. House tried a smile for his sister. I'm fine, Honey. No more, said Leonard Jackson. He looked as worried as Honey. It's the bottom of the ninth, said House. I bat fifth. If we get that far... You're not getting that far, said Doc McRae. Not today. Fans, pageant players, and family members stood at the eager attention of the mist of their picnic debris. Dregs of pie crust and paper cups were strewn underfoot, along with discarded catfish, moon pies, and garden vegetable costumes and more. It was the stuff of an afternoon's vigil. The All-Stars had one last chance to win. They needed 2 runs to tie, 3 runs to win. They needed a miracle. The cheering started as soon as little Mikey McBrayer came to the pitcher's mound with a wad of gum that was as big as he was. His cheek stuck out halfway to Alabama. He had played well all day, and he was cocky. His team was about to win. He warmed up with his catcher. More cheering greeted Wilkie as he stepped to the plate, blinking behind his thick glasses, his knees shaking. Come on, Wilkie, come on, shouted the All-Stars. 2 runs and we're tied, 3 and we win. But Wilkie struck out. I'm sorry, boys, he sniffled. Sometimes these things can't be helped, intoned Finesse, in a voice that imparted this information as if it were the deepest mystery of life. Arnold managed to drive the ball to center and get on first base. Man on first, chirped Finesse. Very nice hit. That's it, Arnie, shouted Klebo. That's it. He turned to Ruby, who was in the on-deck box. Get a hit, Ruby, he said. Just a hit. That's all we need. Evan's next, and he's our power hitter. He can hit you in. Just get on base. He spoke in earnest, as if Ruby didn't know every player's strengths by heart by now. I'll do my best, was all she said. Mikey McBrayer threw her 2 strikes, and Ruby swung too hard at each one. 0-2, droned Finesse in a funeral voice. Ruby looked over at House on the bench with his elbow back in the ice. He watched her. Just meet the ball, he said. Nice and easy. She nodded. Come on, throw her out, yelled Jerry the catcher. The pitch came across the plate, and Ruby swung through, hit it, a little humpback liner that hopped past the Redbug first baseman and settled just inside the first base foul line. Ruby took off for first base. Slide, screamed Klebo, jumping on the bench. Slide! Ruby slid underneath the throw from right field to first and touched the bag ahead of the ball. Dust swirled like a tornado of chickens fighting at first base. She's safe, yelled Dr. Dan. Safe, yelled Mary Wilson. She grabbed her husband and kissed him full on the lips. Safe, yelled Phoebe Tolbert. She grabbed Mr. Tolbert and didn't kiss him. When the dust settled, Ruby was standing on the first base bag, grinning, yelling, Come on, Evan! Bang it out of the park! But Evan struck out. He hit a high fly above himself. He looked up to see if it might scoop behind the backstop. Jerry jock-eyed for position, bumping Evan out of the way, and caught the ball against the backstop, then slithered like a snake down the chain and landed with a thud in the dirt. Evan hung his head and tried not to cry. It's okay, Evan. Fans clapped and cheered for him. At the same time as they cheered for Jerry's catch, suddenly, as they got down to the wire, it didn't even matter which team they'd come here to cheer for. Suddenly, everything and everyone was worth cheering for, and it all mattered terribly. 2 away, wailed Finesse. Her voice carried a jagged edge. She was almost hysterical. Who's up next? Every All-Star player, every Redbug player, every fan groaned. Up next was House Jackson. House pulled his arm out of the ice water and flinched. Fresh tears crowded his eyes. He reached for his glove. No, you don't, said his father. I can't let you do it. We can't forfeit now, cried House. His tears gargled in his throat. House, "You've done enough," said his father. "You cannot play." A hush fell over the bench. The All-Stars stared at House's grief-etched face, and it felt as if their best friend had just died. And then there was rustling and murmuring at the back of the crowd. Dr. Dan cleared his throat. "We have a pinch hitter," he called out in his golden voice. "A pinch hitter for the Aurora County All-Stars." And as the new hitter revealed himself, to shouts of recognition and ripples of appreciation, House wiped his eyes and stared. Then slowly he stood up. "Oh, Earth! You are too wonderful for anybody to realize you," whispered Finesse. "It's positively Thornton Wilder." The new player stepped up to the plate. He was old and short, with a stubby spray of silver-gray hair across his head, black shiny eyes, and skin color of pine cones that dotted the forest floor. He was the only player wearing a uniform. Aurora Angels blazed in a beautiful sky blue script across the white jersey. The uniform fit perfectly. Folks held their breath. Klebo nearly choked on his gum. The past and the present connected. The batter and House exchanged a look. House gave one nod to the batter. "Thank you." The batter gave one nod back. "You're welcome." Parting Schultz swung at the first pitch from little Mikey McBrayer. He swung like he'd been swinging a baseball bat all his life. He smacked the ball so hard, the crack of the bat sounded like an exploding firecracker. The crowd shrieked as the ball sailed away. Finesse forgot her artistic decorum and screamed into the microphone. "It's a high into the left field, beyond left field. Oh, doctor, it's all the way to the Chinaberry tree. It's going, it's gone. Parting Schultz has dialed long distance. Oh, Boppy, a home run." It was. Around the bases flew Arnold and Ruby, waving their arms, triumphant. At home plate, the All-Stars piled on top of one another. But Pip took his time. He ran the bases with the ease of an 88-year-old long-distance runner. He ran with the shouts of his teammates in his ears. He ran with his heart full of the fire of living. He ran across home plate, where he was mobbed by All-Stars, Redbugs, Dr. Dan, and fans of all ages, colors, and descriptions. And Finesse swooned through it all. "The ducks on the pond have swum to shore. The All-Stars win it 9-8. Give that man a contract. This game is over." It was. The Aurora County All-Stars had won the game. The pageant was over, and the crowd, Redbugs and All-Stars alike, went wild.